Terence Blanchard is an amazing example of what it truly means to diversify one's talents. From film scoring to becoming the first Black composer ever to be presented on New York's Metropolitan Opera stage in 2021, the six-time Grammy-winning, two-time Academy Award-nominated trumpeter had one stellar year. Not only did he and his wife, Robin Burgess, receive a humanitarian award for their work supporting musicians in their hometown of New Orleans during the pandemic, Blanchard's latest album, Absence, in tribute to Wayne Shorter, is now nominated for another Grammy Award. As the jazz chair at UCLA's Herb Alpert School of Music, he is an artist and educator that believes in giving back and giving thanks. Thank you so much for joining me on Artimacy, Terence.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kenya.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I'm really honored to be here. When I first met you, I guess it was about a month ago now at the Frederick Jazz Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And you came and played with E Collective and the Turtle Island String.
Yeah.
Man, absolutely soul-stirring performance.
Thank you. We had a lot of fun playing that music, just trying to pay homage to one of our great heroes, Wayne Shorter, and, with Turtle Island, there's been this, I don't know how to even explain it, but there's been this growth in both bands, just from exploring each other's musical personalities. We're all growing from it. So it's amazing. Yeah.
There's an interesting story too about how the recording of Absence came about with Turtle Island. I know you guys have been talking about doing something together, and just it kind of came together really quickly. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it came together really quickly. As a matter of fact, I was talking about it yesterday. Somebody asked me, how long did we rehearse? And I'm like, dude, we didn't rehearse.
Really? Stop.
No, we didn't get a chance. We rehearsed in the studio. That was about it. We didn't have a day of rehearsal before. Yeah. But what happened was, I wanted to do something for Wayne Shorter. There were so many moments where I kept thinking, this guy is the reason why I'm here. He, him, Miles Davis, Herbie, that whole crew, especially Wayne, because of his compositions. And I want to show him now what he means to us. I wanted to let him know how much we love him, how much he's changed our lives, and one of the things that he's always done is always try to encourage us to have our own voice. So the album was not going to be just us playing Wayne's music. He wouldn't have wanted that. I don't think he would have wanted that. I really think it had to be about his music and showing him our music and how he influenced our creativity. It started out just as a project just for the E Collective, but Fabian Almazan, who's the pianist in the band at the time, said, he wanted to write for strings, a string quartet. And I said, sure, no problem. And then my manager, Robin Burgess, she said, well, why not use Turtle Island String Quartet? And I went, wow, it's a great idea. Because I knew of them, but I'd never seen them play live. And man, when we got into the studio, it was like the melding of two minds, and it's been like that on the road. You saw it at the performance when we were in New Jersey, we've been having a great time. But here's the thing, the icing on the cake for me. What really set it off was we, right before the session, we went to Wayne's house and we hung out with Wayne for the day.
Wow.
Both ensembles, E Collective and Turtle Island. And it was just an amazing experience listening to him. He was working on his opera at the time, and seeing the music there and talking to him, it just kind of set the tone for the entire session. And we did the session right before the pandemic. So we were lucky to get everything recorded. We just didn't have it mixed for the longest time.
Oh, I see. Now, this concept of absence, of course, inspired by Wayne. I think I read your daughter has a special connection with Wayne Shorter. And can you speak about the whole concept of absence and what that means?
Well, the thing about it is like, one of the things that I've always loved about Wayne's music is the simplicity and the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's all too often so many times in jazz where everybody wants to display how fast they can play, how high they can play, the most complicated rhythmic thing they can do.
How many notes?
Yeah, how many notes you can play. And one of the things that I love about Wayne is that he can just take a simple melody and break your heart, or he can make you really ponder, think about something, and I think that's where my daughter was coming from. It's the absence, the space in between the notes, that moment that allows you to reflect, as opposed to just reacting to a sheet of sound, Wayne has been like a big uncle to them. They met him when he was really young, obviously. And Wayne is the type of guy, even though they've been around him a couple of times, one meeting with Wayne, it'll change your life, man.
Wow.
Because he's just that type of dude. He'll ask you a simple question and you go, whoa, never really thought about that,
Yeah. Do you remember your first experience meeting Wayne?
When I was with Art Blakey years ago, we were in
You started
Spain.
out with Blakey and Lionel Hampton as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we were in Spain on tour, and we were in between flights at the airport, and we saw somebody walking, and somebody goes, man, that's Wayne Shorter. And we were like, oh my God. And then somebody in the band yelled, hey, Wayne. And then he stopped, and then he started to walk over. And then we were like, uh-oh, so what do we do now? And luckily Art was there, Art Blakey was there, and he came over and he started to talk to Art, and he goes, hey, how you doing, Art? Boom, boom, boom. Hey, Wayne, how's it going? And I remember somebody asked him, if you had to give us any advice about composition, what would it be? And he said, you got to go down into the basement and visit every note. And, I took that to mean you got to work, you have to take time to really investigate your musical ideas. That's one of the things I teach my students. The idea is just that. It's not a composition, it's an idea. You have to really investigate it, flip it around, turn it upside down, turn it inside out, and see what's there, and try to get as much out of it as you can. But that takes time, and one of the things that I always tell my students, I said, the thing in jazz that you have to start to notice is that there are a lot of jazz musicians who are lazy, who just want to say, hey, man, let's just go out and play some tunes. Let's just do this, or let's just vibe out. But that's not the great ones. The great ones are never like that. You know what I mean? Herbie was never like that. He is not like that. Wayne is not like that. Dizzy wasn't like that. All of the guys that I met who were the great ones, they were never like that. They took their time to investigate everything. As a matter of fact, we used to have a joke when we were on tour with Herbie Hancock in rehearsal. If he started to look at some music and he started to do this, it was time to go take a break.
Really?
Yeah. Because he was sitting down figuring something out, and it probably would take him 30 to 45 minutes. And this is in rehearsal with the band, and then he would come up with an idea, and then he would disseminate it to the band, and then we'd move on. We wouldn't even really play through the tunes, but we would have the idea sketched out in our minds about what it was going to be. And then it would just kind of develop as we played it on the shows.
Wow. Speaking of Wayne, and of course, now he has his opera up and mounted with Esperanza Spalding, which is amazing just to see him still creating, at his age, still just reinventing himself, it seems. Of course, you two have that in common, the whole opera composition and all of that with Fire Shut Up in My Bones. Let me just say, my first experience at the Met was to see Fire Shut Up in My Bones. And the sense of pride that I felt, I think I mentioned this to you at Frederick, was just immeasurable. When I looked around and I saw so many Black faces at the Met in a historically, let's just say, a white space, what I'm saying? It was just such a thing of beauty to experience. And to see, representation of HBCUs on the stage, being a graduate of Howard and all of that, it was incredible. So I just want to, take my hat off to you right now. I know you've gotten this a lot,
Thank
but the amount of people that you brought into the Met, I know for you must feel, just amazing.
Well, it was, Kiana, one of the things that was like really profound about it was that's not what we set out to do. We just wanted to tell a story. We wanted to tell Charles's story. That was it. But then we looked, and this happened in St. Louis when we did it in St. Louis for the first time a few years ago. Somebody else had to tell us that it was an all-Black cast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so it would, and that's the thing that I try to tell all of my students. Make it about the story, make it about the art, and then all of the other things will fall into place where they should be. But if you make it about a specific thing, then you have to be beholden to that thing.
Right.
And sometimes the art might suffer, right? So it was really interesting when people said, man, it was nice how you did this with an all-Black cast. I literally had to stop and go, oh, right. Yeah, it's an all-Black cast. I didn't think about it. But when it got to the Met, having had that experience in St. Louis, I was extremely proud of all of those singers. You have no idea.
Yeah.
The first day of rehearsal was so overwhelming. It was powerful to walk into a room of 40 singers and dancers and 16 dancers and be the only person that couldn't sing.
Wow.
I mean, like everybody in that room can really sing, you know? And when I never forget when they had one of the first chorus rehearsals, I walked by the room as they were singing some of the music and I got emotional. It just blew me away to hear all of those voices. And I think the thing that really blew me away the most was they're very capable. You know, they can sing anything. As a matter of fact, some of those people were in Turandot, Puccini's opera. They were in other operas while they were there. They just weren't doing Porgy and Bess. And they would nail in those other operas. But when it came to Fire, one of the things that we had a discussion about, as a matter of fact, that first day, we literally had a roundtable discussion with everybody. Everybody in the production. We had a big circle in the rehearsal room. And we started to talk about the importance of this and what it meant, not only to us, but just to the community in general. And the statements that were being told, there were tears, there was laughter. This LaTonya Moore talked about how she needed her mom to see this opera.
Wow.
You know, and as a matter of fact, LaTonya, I'll never forget, every night that I had to do a curtain call, when I would go backstage, I would literally be standing behind her backstage, and she was always in tears.
Wow.
Always, every night. And she said, you don't understand. This is the first role that I've ever sung in my career that I can relate to.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? And that to me is like a very powerful thing. That's the other thing that made me proud about this, because when I did my first opera, Champion, and I started talking to people like Karen Slack, Denise Graves, the late Arthur Woodley, all of these very profound, beautiful Black voices. One of the things they all shared with me is that some of them came up from the church, some of them came up from being jazz singers, some of them were R&B singers, and when they got to opera, they were told to put that away.
Wow.
To put that aside. And that very first day, again, what I told the entire crew is that I want you to bring all of that back. I want you to bring all of that to this.
Yeah.
And Angel Blue, you know, she came up to me a few weeks later. She said, I heard what you said, so do you mind if I try some things? And when she did this, she sings this aria called Peculiar Grace. Out there once was a boy, a peculiar grace, you know, and she mixes in her, because she grew up in the church, and she mixes in her church background with her operatic voice. And man, let me tell you, the first time she did that, there were tears in the room. And it wasn't just because her performance was beautiful. It wasn't that. It wasn't, because the performance was beautiful, but it was about a recognition of who we are and where we've come from. You know, there was a young brother named Regendra, who was the assistant dramaturge. He came up to me during rehearsal one day, and he couldn't speak. He was trying to talk, but he couldn't speak because he was crying. And he kept saying, he said, I don't know if people are ready for this. I don't know if people are, and then he just walked out of the room, you know, to look at Camille Brown's choreography. You know, her choreography was ingenious.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm so proud of her. Let me just say that, because
of course.
Oh my God. I've watched her grow in so many different ways. And
Yeah.
to see her and her movement up on that stage, man, it
Mhm.
just, I really appreciate about you and what you've done with Fire is that you've made a space for us and our particular and unique flavor. And
Yes.
like you said, you know, you told everybody that you want them to bring all of that
Mhm.
to this thing. And that's the thing that really, for me personally, just sitting
Mhm.
there in the audience, I felt seen.
There you see, see, man, you just hit it on the head. The thing that people keep asking me, what does it feel like? I said, bro, this isn't even about me. This is really not about me. This is about an underserved community, in this area of art. When you experienced it when the frat boys come out just in their gear,
Yeah.
there's applause. They
Oh my
haven't
God.
done anything. They didn't do anything yet. I was joking with him. I said, Brian, never walk on the stage and just get applause like that for doing nothing.
Right.
But the thing that I loved about it was like, it's exactly what you said. They were being seen. Now, having said that, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not trying to promo the performance. I'm just giving you my experience based on Champion, right? One of the things, because the opera's going to Chicago and in March and April. And one of the things that I've learned with all of these singers is like, see everybody, and it's going to be mostly the same people from this cast.
Love it.
These people are digesting their performance right now. They're taking it all in. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees because you're right in it, right? I've seen it with Denise Graves. I've seen when you get to that next production of it, man, everything just goes up like this in a way that I can't even see or can't even describe,
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about it going to Chicago because I know, with Will Liverman.
Oh,
Will Liverman, he was always a great voice. He always had a, huge voice and has a beautiful tone to his voice. But his initial performances in rehearsal, he was figuring his way out. He was trying to find some things, and then all of a sudden, when we got into the theater, he started to add his body motion to what it was that he was singing, which made his voice and the performance just rev up even more, Oh, it was, I mean, I'll never forget, there was one day in rehearsal, we all looked around and we go, man, what got into him? But whatever he's doing, keep eating. Keep
doing it.
because it was so incredibly beautiful. And I have to say, there's a couple other things that I have to say. One is that to watch all of these people of color take care of each other throughout the rehearsal period. They were each other's support system. I've never seen anything like it. Those little kids, Walter and Caleb, who was his cover, they took care of them. You know what I mean? It was truly, truly like a family experience, and it was beautiful. I wanted to go to rehearsal every day. I just wanted to be there, be in that space, just experience that. And the other thing that I have to talk about, because nobody's talking about it, is that, okay, I was the first African-American, but one of the things that I think is extremely important for people to know is that a good portion of this was funded by Black people as well.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, a lot of people don't know. Darren Walker, part of the Ford Foundation, stepped up to the table and supported us, and Susan Johnson also supported. She paid for the entire after party, the entire thing. You know what I mean? So it's so interesting when we look at commerce, in the world of art and philanthropy. We always want to see certain things, but we have to learn how to put our money where our mouth is. Right. And these people did that. And they reaped the benefits and the results. Look at what happened. We damn near sold out every night, 8 shows. We could have added shows. And the only reason why we didn't add shows because most of the cast was in Porgy and Bess.
Okay.
So there was a scheduling issue. So we couldn't do it, but we could have added shows.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, man. I had no idea. That is
Yeah,
so important. We got to help each other. We
exactly.
do. I want to go back a little bit to Champion and
Mhm.
how, Fire has sort of given way to it going up on the Met stage in April
Yes.
2020. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Man, now I think I first heard about Champion back in, I think it was like 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, that's when it was first done in St. Louis.
And so now in April 2023, it'll be up at the Met, same cast as mostly the same cast. You're thinking?
Yeah, we're gonna try to bring back is well, there are going to be some major changes because a few people aren't with us anymore. Robert Orth and Arthur Whitley are no longer with us, so we're going to have to replace those roles in Champion. But Speedo Green, who played Uncle Paul in Fire Shut Up in My Bones, is actually going to play Emil Griffith, the fight in his prime. And then Eric Owens, who was also in Porgy and Bess, the other production of it, he's going to play the older Emil. So those are two powerful voices. I'm really excited about that.
How does it feel to know that you have been working for so long on your own opera and then to see it up and being produced on the Met stage?
Man, I got to tell you, what's funny about that? You're asking that question. Me and my wife are having a discussion about this morning. You're so busy trying to better your craft. It's wild because I was a big Jerry Rice fan, who was a great football player, and Jerry Rice was one of the greatest wide receivers in the NFL. And one of the things he said at the end of his career was he never took the time to really enjoy what it is that he did. I said, man, that's such a shame. And I'm trying to balance that out with myself because I am so in the business of trying to better myself, because one of the things you guys may not realize is while Fire Shut Up in My Bones was at the Met, I went to a dress rehearsal for Turandot, Puccini's opera. And from the very first note, I went, oh, I got some work to do. You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to always better myself. I can't sit down and relax and say, oh, I got this covered. There are always things that you can make better. And that's what I get excited about, is getting a chance to make something better. With Champion, I think Champion is more emotional than Fire Shut Up in My Bones. I watched Champion every time it was performed, and I cried at the end of it every time it was performed. And that was just because, Arthur Woodley was an amazing performer. Everybody, Victor Robinson, they were all amazing performers. So I'm really looking forward to this, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to getting another chance to delve into some of the areas that I think need to be sharpened up a bit.
That's what keeps you inspired, I guess. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, in closing here, because we got to wrap up, but I know, I believe I read somewhere that your dad was a part-time opera singer as well. So it's kind of been in your blood for your entire life. Is this something you always wanted to do, to write for opera?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, man, I really didn't understand my dad. I thought he was a weirdo and all his friends were weirdos, man. I'm like, well, we lived in a really small house in New Orleans, and the front of the house was where the piano was. And so it was one of those carports that we converted into a den. A lot of people do those. So I remember, man, when I would bring my boys home, I would literally sit down and listen at the door. And I'm like, man, damn, he's in there, practicing something. So I would literally open the door real quick and say, come on, bro, let's go in the back. And my boys would be like, yo, man, what your dad doing? I'm like, don't worry about that. Let's just go in the back. And every Wednesday, him and a bunch of his friends would have rehearsal with this guy named Osceola Blanchard, C-H-E-T, who I used to think was my grandfather, but he was just a brilliant man who came back and taught a lot of young African-American males opera. My dad was one of them. So I used to hear classic opera all the time and never really thought about being involved in this at all. And then when I got a chance, when I did Champion, I'll never forget the night of the premiere was very emotional for everybody in St. Louis. And man, I was on the stage taking my bow. And Arthur Woodley, he grabbed me, and he was a strong guy, and he grabbed me real tight behind my neck. And he was looking at me, and he says, your dad would be really proud of you right now. Wow. And that it made me emotional, because, it's one of those things where you don't really understand where your parents are coming from. And then years later, I mean, I had a story with Art Blakey like that, where Art Blakey made me realize how brilliant my dad was, and I had no clue. I used to think my dad was just this corny dude who loved opera and who's hung out with musicians and, sold insurance and sang in church. That was my dad to me. And when my cousin got a set of drums, he sat on the drums. He said, let me show y'all how to play. And he started playing 4/4 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. And we thought that was the corniest stuff we ever heard. We laughed. He got mad and said, y'all don't want to learn nothing. Years later, I'm playing with my hero, Art Blakey, my first gig, Strasbourg, France. We play morning, when it goes to the bridge, I literally couldn't play. I was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, my dad meant a lot to me. He introduced me to a lot of things. We used to argue all the time about music. And then it took me to become a grown man to realize, even in our arguments, he never said, do it because I told you so. His thing was, prove your point. Prove your point to me. Let me see where you're coming from. And I didn't really understand that until I was an adult myself, and I wish he were here. I wish he were here so I could say thank you to him. It's just one of those things though, but.
Well, you are through your work. You know that, right? You are saying thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm trying. I don't want to let people down. There's too many people who are invested in this. When anybody signs on to one of these productions, I want to make sure that whatever it is they're singing, they're connected to it. They feel it, and it's something that resonates in their soul and something that they feel proud singing.
Terence, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for this. Thank you for, just continuing to motivate and inspire me personally through your work and watching your grind, man.
Speaking of which, that's why I look like this. I don't have enough time to do anything. I'm in the middle of working on a bunch of projects. You know what I mean? That
means your priorities are in order. So
yeah, man, I was sitting there going, oh, it's 10:55.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me here on Artimacy. Terence Blanchard, I appreciate you.
Good seeing you again.
You too. See you soon. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.